Hi, y'all. This is Kristen Chenoweth.
Hi, I'm Gloria Stefan.
This is Sarah Bareilles.
Hi, I'm Patti LuPone.
This is Lin-Manuel Miranda. You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Theater Podcast, intimate personal conversations with theater's biggest names. I'm Catherine O'Hara.
I don't remember anyone else from that movie.
Oh, you're so young.
Beetlejuice scared me when I was a kid. Like, I went to see the show, and there was a couple moments that I had, like, flashbacks of having nightmares when I was a child.
Oh, really?
Like, the shrunken head scared the ever-living bejesus out of me.
Well, in case you didn't figure it out, we're talking about Beetlejuice, which now has taken over September.
Woohoo,
here on the
takeover.
Theater Podcast. And so the first two episodes actually are with William Ivey Long, who now with Tootsie and Beetlejuice are his 74th and 75th Broadway credit.
What?
As a costume designer. This dude just does not stop.
When we got the opportunity to interview him, my heart dropped. I flipped out. My nerdiness just exploded. He is beyond incredible. He's done some of the most amazing shows you've ever seen. Producers, and now he's doing Beetlejuice and all these different things where it's just like, wait, you're real? You're here? Oh my God.
And ironically, I don't know why. I knew this, but I had forgotten it, that he's from Raleigh.
Everyone's from North Carolina.
With me, and he literally, as an infant, lived in a stage right dressing room in the community college where I got my start. And there's a plaque on the wall. At the time, when I was just starting out, I didn't know who he was. I saw this plaque, and I was like, okay, cool, some person's been here. But then, remembering as an adult, been in this business for a while, I'm like, holy crap, like, that's a big deal.
It all comes back around.
We gushed on each other, and we,
love.
in our southern drawls, came back out a little bit. And, what was really funny for me, though, was at the end, after we stopped recording, he was telling me that he took off his glasses so that he couldn't see me clearly because it helped him relax, because he was nervous to do the interview.
That's so cute.
He was nervous to do an interview. This legend, this man that has been in the business forever.
But that just shows you that even if you are a legend or even if you have this amazing long career, you're still a person and everybody is still just making their way through business.
Such a nice guy. So I can't wait to share this with you. And actually, like I said, this is going to be a two-part interview. We're going to release in 2 episodes. So this is part 1. Stick around in a few days. We'll release part 2 because we talked so long that we want to split it up for you. So before we get into it, as always, visit us at ttp.fm/Patreon to show your support, or just visit us at ttp.fm to listen, subscribe, share with your friends, give us a rating, give us a review, follow us on the Instas, all of that fun stuff. Enjoy this takeover month with Beetlejuice. Please go see the show. It is phenomenal. And now enjoy this episode, part 1 of William Ivey Long.
Here you go. 1, 2, 3.
I'm truly honored and humbled to sit with my guest today. This 6-time Tony Award-winning costume designer has won for the shows 9, Crazy for You, The Producers, Hairspray, Grey Gardens, and the recent revival of Cinderella. Over his phenomenal 43-year Broadway career, he's garnered an additional 11 Tony Award nominations and has even gone so far as to be nominated against himself this past award season for costume design for both Tootsie and Beetlejuice, both currently running on Broadway. William Ivey Long, welcome to the Theater Podcast.
Thank you. I love this airy here way above Broadway.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, this is a great space. I love it.
I love it.
But I did some math. 43 years, starting from your first...
Is it really 43 years?
Your first Broadway credit. And you're credited with 75 Broadway shows.
That's correct. Beetlejuice, in fact, we called it my Diamond Jubilee. Another excuse for a party.
And 38 off-Broadway shows.
Okay.
Which, that does not include the touring production of Dreamgirls, 5 films, or the 6 TV shows. But just Broadway and off-Broadway is almost 3 shows a year for almost half a century.
Oh my God. That's me?
That's you.
No wonder I'm tired.
Well, why do you do so much? How do you do so much?
I'm a Virgo. when you're born and raised in Raleigh, North Carolina, something you must know about.
That's right. That's where I'm from.
You come out running, not running away, just running in place. And I actually don't know how to answer that question. I think I love it. And the people we work, it's all about the people. It's two things: the stories we tell and the people with whom we tell them. That is the key to why you do anything in the theater, I think. The stories you tell, do they have a purpose? Do they have a zinger? Do they have a life-changing motivation and result? Hopefully, yes. And then the people with whom you work change your life constantly.
As a costume designer, that's really interesting to me that you're thinking about the result and the change that these characters are bringing to the world. Oh,
you wanted me to talk about chiffon and gussets? No, I can do that too.
I just mean you're the first costume designer I've interviewed on the podcast, and obviously an extremely successful one. And so there's something about you that has just worked. And so, we're going to dive into that.
Well, I don't think I've ever been asked that, even in my wildest dreams, and there have been some wild dreams. But gosh, what makes Sammy run? I mean, wasn't that a novel, a film, what was that, a Broadway musical?
Passion, motivate, yeah.
I don't know. I think there's that carrot. There's an elusive carrot that you want like a whole bushel of carrots to spell out your name at the end of your life. And if you have W and I and L in it, it makes easy carrot spelling. But and you really want to have done something. And I'll never forget that. This is the hubris. Okay, get ready I'm going to be shot down for saying this. But I remember I was in college, one of my colleges, my first college, William & Mary in Williamsburg. And I remember realizing, because I was a painter, I've always painted, I've always drawn, I've always sketched. You're lucky there's no pencil right in front of me or I'd be ruining this table. I realized I wasn't going to be Michelangelo. And at the time, this was, because when you're in college, you're profoundly, into, the ethos. And you're profoundly into everything that means something. So it was only decades later, that I realized how preposterous and presumptuous this was. Wait a minute, William, Ivey Long, and Michelangelo, let me think. But seriously, that was a turning point. I realized I was not going to be a great artist. And so you look around and see what you go, wow.
So you went to William & Mary with a degree in history.
That's right.
So you weren't even
drawing.
Yes,
but there's the world. But artist is a big letter A and a little letter A and
right,
like that.
Well, let's back up.
I'm just telling you the truth. I mean, you're asking me why our runs do so much, and I don't know. That slowed me down. That one when I realized, oh my, I'm not it.
Well, I think everybody needs to reinvent themselves multiple times in their life.
Absolutely. That was the first of many, and I had one this morning. So reinvention, are us.
Right. Well, I actually want to have you clarify. Wikipedia says you're from Raleigh. You just said you're from Raleigh, but I read somewhere you're from Seaboard, North Carolina. Is that a little suburb of Raleigh?
Well, oh Lord. Am I supposed to tell the truth? I was supposed to be born in Raleigh, North Carolina. There was a polio outbreak in Raleigh the summer of 1947. And my great-grandmother, and Southern great-grandmothers, she laid down the law and she says that my first great-grandchild will not be born in polio-infested Raleigh. So it was sort of like we got on the mule and started going toward Bethlehem, and we landed in Pennsylvania. And I was born in Williamsport, Pennsylvania.
Really?
I like to think the town was named after me. But
you were named after the town?
No, I'm my father, but also after the town, of course. But anyway, so I was actually born but I claim Seaboard sometimes, but I claim Raleigh as my birthplace.
Yeah.
I think you can do that, right? You can rewrite.
Especially
in this year of that that man's fake news. We can just say anything.
It's an alternative fact. You can just put that out
That's
there.
right.
And now it's
That's
true.
it. So I was born and raised in Raleigh, North Carolina.
I have such a hard time right now not letting my accent slip back in.
I'm just going to egg you on, and we're going to be a mess.
I ditched it. I ditched it so hard, and I go back.
I tried to too. I don't have one at all, except when I'm goaded.
You want to put on the charm a little bit.
I can do that little.
Yeah. So then, what was your childhood like? Like your parents?
Well, actually the reason we were in. Well, I was the first child, first son, first grandson, first great grandson. Our first child, like that person, I guess. But back then, you used gender words, and to be born and raised in Raleigh. Guess where my first childhood home? It was literally my home coming at age 6 weeks until I was 3.5 years old. I grew up in the stage left dressing room of the Raleigh Little Theatre outdoor amphitheater. And about 4 years ago, Raleigh has a sense of humor. They declared it William Ivey Long Day, and they put a plaque on that beautiful WPA-built stone building with a slate roof. And it was just a big party. And literally, that's my childhood home. So when you grow up in a stage-left dressing room, you open the door to go out, and you step on the stage.
Yes.
So that is what I be careful where you raise your children. And I remember fireflies. I have no fear of lightning. And when you live in a little tiny brick house with a slate roof, that's a dressing room, everything is magical. Mm-hmm. Everything is theater. Everything is stories. The firefly. I remember the fireflies. I remember the Easter sunrise services, because finally somebody was up when I was awake. Because I've been an early farm boy riser for forever. And there's a rose garden. Canty Sutton is her name.
I was going to ask if
you
it
know
was
the
there.
Rose Garden, of course.
Yeah. People get married there all the time.
They do, and there was a fountain. In the little circular fountain. And I heard, Billy, don't run near that fountain. Well, of course, that was my destination constantly all day long. And I would swim and bob up and down in that fountain. And there are pictures of me in the fountain. And it was a boy with a dolphin. And the dolphin would be spouting the water. Mm-hmm. And I just loved that. I thought, then when I saw years ago Cocteau's Beauty and the Beast, and I saw all those arms holding, torches and candelabras and things like this. I thought, well, that's like, of course you go and there's this little boy with a dolphin. The dolphin is creating, the water in that pond. So it all tied together with me, surrealism and playing in the Rose Garden. And then in the plays, the very first awareness I had of what theater was or what alternate reality was, I remember going into a very long, dark room about, 20 feet. I had no concept of place, but people were about the size of my hand. And I watched a man yell at my mother and pull her hair, and she cried. And I remember crying, and I don't remember being there anymore. I was watching, I was told years later, My Mother in Death of a Salesman. There's no trauma like childhood trauma. But
so it's scarred you enough to get you into the theater.
It did. I couldn't stay away. And so my father was technical director of the Raleigh Little Theatre. That's his first job since I was born. And my mother was a stay-at-home multi-master's degree winning writer and historian. So that lasted exactly as long as each of the three of us were born. And then she started on her own feet and flying away. So,
wow.
But we lived there. It was magical. There were fireflies. There was thunder. Oh, thunder, Oh, yes, lightning is angels striking matches. And thunder is angels moving furniture.
That's such a Southern thing.
Isn't that a Southern thing? Because, there's so much furniture to move.
Bless your heart.
Bless my heart. So anyway, those are my memories of, but they're pretty seriously big memories.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. I
thought everyone lived in the theater.
I used to perform. I guess you're always an actor if you're an actor. It never leaves your soul, but I I got my serious start when I fell in love with theater at RLT.
Amazing. And was Haskell Fitzsimmons
Haskell was in charge.
Artistic director?
Yeah, like I was bouncing back and forth between John McElwee at NC State.
Yes.
John, he just retired.
Amazing.
Yeah, John at NC State and Haskell at RLT, and then with stints with Ira David Wood,
who I grew up with at the Lost Colony.
Theater in the Park. And like that was my triangle.
Oh my goodness. See? And wow. Well, I still work with David.
Yeah.
And I just finished. I'm currently in the Lost Colony, is still running. This is my 49th season with the Lost Colony. I have been for the last 20 years, production designer, meaning scenery, costumes, props.
Right.
And David's the director. And my parents were there. My father was in it like the third year on. And then he directed it, and my mother played Queen Elizabeth, as my brother and I say, on stage and off. And so we're all Lost Colony people. And well, North Carolinians are storytellers and are history storytellers. And there's so much of the history. And that's where the whole country of invading Anglo-Saxons landed. Mm-hmm. And that's where, at Fort Raleigh.
Yeah. And
and then got lost.
I believe it is correct that Theater in the Park, the Christmas Carol at Memorial Auditorium, is it still called Memorial Auditorium?
I think it is. We call it that.
Yeah, that's what it'll always be to me.
Yes.
Is part of like tour books now. It's like, if you're here during this time of the year, this is a North Carolina staple you must go see.
Really? The Christmas Carol?
Yeah.
Well, good for David. So good for Dickens.
Yeah.
Good for you.
For those who don't know, Ira David Wood, he and
the third,
yeah. He and Terrence Mann originally wrote this script like coming up on 40 years ago or something, and it changes. It's like a 3-hour-long production, changes every year to add in jokes and bring in pop culture references.
Correct.
And it's this comedy of Christmas Carol that still has such heart. And it's a completely unpaid, no one's paid, community theater production that sells out the largest venue in the area.
Amazing. And his son is now playing.
Yeah.
Ira the Fourth.
Ira 4. Ira's another great.
Well, I grew up with David, and we didn't call him Ira then. We called him David, and Terry, and Billy. And we were all in the Lost Colony. And I think I was 19, and the two of them were 17.
Really?
Isn't that crazy? And we're still working together. I'm working with Terry all the time.
Was Evan still was she already in LA at this point? Evan Rachel Wood?
No, when we were 19 and 17.
Oh, when you were 19 and 17. Yes. She was not
even a spark in an eyebrow. She wasn't even a raised eyebrow at that moment.
All right. So back to you here. Okay, so you went to William & Mary, degree in history, and then you find yourself at UNC Chapel Hill.
Then I go back home. See, all the Longs, there were two Long brothers from Northampton County, where Seaboard is. Northampton County. Well, David's from Enfield, and I'm from Seaboard.
Right.
Anyway, and Raleigh, as you noticed. But anyway, there were two Long brothers in the first class. So all the Longs, if you can read and write and walk and talk sort of intelligently, you go to Chapel Hill, or you just don't go. And so the Longs, my parents met there. They were Carolina playmakers. Mm-hmm. My father then taught there. My brother and I both graduated from there, he graduated from there. I was in art history, and as my first graduate school, and I'd gone to William & Mary. I was the rebel because, in the 60s, I was being rebellious. So my version was not to go to the family school, go to another school. So I went to an even older school, went to William & Mary. And but then when I got to William & Mary, one of our neighbors from growing up, and someone who taught my parents, both of them, playwriting, Betty Smith, who wrote A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, and lived on Rosemary Street, said, let Billy come and stay with me. So Billy stayed with Betty for 3 years. Well, little did we all know what was happening in the ethos. Betty had she was in the original class at Yale Drama School. George Pierce Baker's dozen of playwrights, meaning there were 13 playwrights. Mm-hmm. She was one of the 13 playwrights. Well, through osmosis, I shifted my focus from Renaissance and Baroque architecture, where I was a Samuel H. Kress teaching fellow at Chapel Hill. This was really my passion. I was going to be a historian. I was going to, just spend my life in the architrave of life. Antithesis was going to be how I stood, like that. And somehow I shifted my focus and found myself after my final class, applying to the Yale Drama School, dropping, and so cocky. You notice, since I, of course, just am full of it. I dropped my application into the post office box and got on the plane and went to Florence because they had scholarship money for studying, and I was Renaissance Baroque architect. So I continued, went to Florence for the summer, came back, opened my envelope, my acceptance. I just thought life was going to be like that.
Wow.
It's amazing we aren't shot down more often. I have been since, but back then it was pretty magical.
That's ridiculous. Okay, so then you go to Yale School of Drama.
To major in scenic design with Ming Cho Lee.
Right.
My great teacher, the greatest teacher probably still living on the planet.
He's still living. He's 88 now.
Oh, no, he's not. I think he's in his 90s. Hasn't he kicked into the ninth? I don't know. I think so.
I think Wikipedia tells me he's 88.
Well, there you go. Youngster.
So he was in his 40s when you were studying with him.
That's right.
Ridiculous. And who was your roommate?
Oh, now you've been reading this Pulp Fiction. Mm-hmm. No, really. My William and Mary roommate. See, I was really nervous and scared. I would alternate between cocky and scared. Well, I didn't want to go up north with all those Yankees, and so we got in his Winnebago and parked in some parking lot down at the Knights Templar building in New Haven, not making this stuff. It's still there. Still the ugliest brown building you've ever seen in your life. And it looks like a Noguchi prototype of a big trash can. And it isn't. But anyway, we parked in that parking lot. You wake up, it's all this burnt, brutalist brown. And we go to the drama school, and I'm too scared to go to the green room. And he goes in and comes back with what we now call a hanging chad. He got the last roommate wanted on this yellow Post-it thing and pre-Post-it. And I go in, and I discover that evening that my roommate is this five of us in this Victorian building. My roommate sharing a bathroom was this beautiful brunette young lady to whom I looked up and who went by the name of Sigourney. And the next morning when we were all dividing the shelves in the kitchen, one floor below, there was this beautiful blonde girl by the name of Meryl. And they and Barry Marshall and his wife and I made up this 5-person Victorian house.
Ridiculous.
I know, can't make it up.
So Sigourney Weaver, Meryl Streep, they knew each other, or did they meet potluck roommates?
That's where they met too. We all met. Well, Sigourney was in her 3rd year. See, the Yale Drama School MFA program is a 3-year program.
Yeah.
She was the grown-up. She was the 3rd year, and Meryl and I and Barry were in our own class. Soon to be called, within that very year, the Meryl Streep class. Honest to goodness.
That is crazy. So, okay, so you're coming to work.
She even became an adjective. Walt Jones, who was the director, he and Barry were the 2 directors, Barry Marshall and Walt Jones, in our class. And Walt Jones invented the term to streep it up, which means focus, take over, own the stage, streep it up. And he made that up that very first year.
I imagine all of you getting privately very off the wall crazy, and then publicly, you got to keep your image. But it was college. I hope you.
It was pretty crazy. It was pretty crazy. Yeah.
Can you tell me any secrets?
No, not at all.
Meryl's lawyers will come down on us.
Good taste is timeless.
Yes. So Ming Cho Lee, he was a major influence on your work. You've been quoted as saying that.
He's been a major of my life. What an ethic. He sent us, Ming Cho Lee, as I previously referred to him as the greatest teacher ever. We showed up to the first, there were only 6 of us in our design class. And Ming, that was it. And we showed up, and he asked, it was a Wednesday morning, I think at 9 or 10, can't remember. And he said, has everyone registered to vote? And of course, we all looked and said, no. He canceled the class and sent us down to the quad down in New Haven so that we would register to vote. Now, if that isn't the best way to focus your design students on what we're here on the planet for and how engaged we must become in order to, tell these important stories. So Ming Cho Lee, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow. And he got his own Tony in 1983 for scenic design. And then in 2013, a Lifetime Achievement Award.
That's right. That's right.
Lifetime Achievement Tony Award. And he is just...
He's the greatest. He's just, through example, through his ethical example, through his brushstrokes, through his drawing, through his there's a monograph on that Arnold Aronson did on him. And it's, when you finish all the earth-shattering, scenic, milestones, and along with Boris Aronson. And come on, these are, there you are, and Mel Zehner, the 20th century, and along with these milestones, and then at the end, almost as a postscript, are his watercolors. And you just go, oh, just stop my heart right now. And just everything he touches is magical. And the best part of working with Ming is his script analysis. Now, remember, English is his second language. Mm-hmm. Mandarin is his first language. And Cho Lee Ming, I think that's how it goes. And I M Pei was his first cousin. So when you'd go to his Christmas parties, there'd be I M Pei. So that's a cultured crowd there. And just the moral intensity and the why do we do theater? What can theater do to change lives? What to do when you have when you're stumped? How do you get off your no imagination bench? All these things, these are major things to be instructed on. I didn't say, how do you find creativity? I said, because I don't think anyone has ever said that to me. Some people ask it now. Oh, well, how do you teach creativity? Well, I don't even know what
You're just creative.
I don't know what that means. But when you're stumped, there are several things you can do that you go back and you research and you go back and do another layer of deeper study. And so 3 years of Ming Cho Lee is enough to get you going. I've been very lucky. Very lucky.
That's incredible. It not coming from a scenic design background or costume design at all. Like I would think, the coursework would be, and I assume it sort of included this of like, well, how do you create this texture, or how do you make this look, or like the actual logistics of putting things together?
That came later.
Yeah. Oh, later, really?
Yeah, that came later.
Oh, so I guess that makes sense. So you have
what's the world? Yeah. What do you want the audience to experience? What is this story telling? How is this Shakespeare best interpreted this week?
Huh?
Like that?
Yeah.
No, I'm talking big stuff.
Right.
Big stuff.
Okay. So then, God, there's so much I want to talk about here.
How about I've only taken one costume course. Do you have that down there?
No, I didn't know that.
That's my new announcement. Okay. I usually keep it secret. But I took 1 2-hour course and then focused on Ming.
No kidding.
Yes. I've taken more lighting design courses than costume courses.
So, well, tell me the story. How did
you pick it up along the way? And I've always been fascinated by clothing and by costume and telling stories of people's lives through either red herring, what they're wearing, what they're not wearing, or where are they going, where are they not going, how do they want to confuse you? Clothing can do so many things. Mm-hmm. So I think I've just always been fascinated, but I've never formally studied it. It's always been my, I guess, avocation.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
And you only, I'm trying to find it in my notes here. So you in 1970, until 1978, you were an apprentice in New York for someone doing scenic design, right?
No, I moved to New York. I was, farm boy from Raleigh, North Carolina, and with no sophistication whatsoever. And I wanted some desperately. Guess what? I'm still searching for it. Still no sophistication whatsoever. Just ask all my friends. And so I thought, okay, I need to go. Because one of the things, I had two best friends at drama school. One was an undergraduate, Paul Rudnick. And the other was the year right after me, Wendy Wasserstein. So the three of us were sort of this crazy group. But especially Wendy and I, she did work study. She was the librarian at the drama school library. And so we would do all manner of crazy things. I can't even tell. If we had more time and this were cocktail hour, I'd tell you about the few things we used to do, which probably are yet to be discovered in those books. But anyway, we'd write little things and put them anonymously in books. Love letters from Bob Brustein to Norma Brustein, and we'd make up love letters, and we'd write like Congreve would write, or we'd write like Sam Shepard would write, and we'd write love letters and then fold them up either perfectly, or we imagined who the person was, crumple them, and then put them in another book. So, and we did this for like years. So there's probably this whole parallel world of the love letters of Bob Brustein and Norma Brustein, but as imagined by Chekhov. And shall we say, I don't know, what did I just say? Sam Shepard.
Yeah.
But anyway, we were in the library, and that's where I discovered both Interview Magazine and Women's Wear Daily. And through studying, and I wanted to go to New York. When you go to the Yale Drama School, or I guess back then, any design school, you were destined for only two places: Los Angeles to do movies, or New York to do Broadway.
Right.
So, of course, we all wanted to go to Broadway, except for those of us who didn't. Then they all went out to LA. And some few of us, like the blonde roommate and the brunette roommate, of course, went everywhere because they were ladies of the world and could do anything and still can. And after what really occupied us was writing these love letters. Anyway, that Wendy and I would then post. But studying Warhol's and Fred Hughes's interview, and then Fairchild's Women's Wear Daily, all of a sudden this light bulb went off, and I said, I have to move to New York. I have to move to the Chelsea Hotel because that's where Charles James lives and works, and I need to apprentice myself to the great couturier Charles James. Mm-hmm. All of that is what I did. It took me 6 months of stalking him and leaving these little crumpled love letter notes. That's my style, I guess. And no one reads them, obviously. So it took me 6 months. And then I started doing gopher work for him. And I sort of was a glorified gopher person around. You know, it's not called an assistant or an apprentice per se. I don't know. I was sort of, back then, you were making up, as you can tell, how you were doing it. But I was there until he died, and he died like 4 years later. Yeah. And right after he died, I left the Chelsea Hotel. So I wanted to be, because when I came to, by the way, when I graduated, I realized, I know nothing, all of this, in spite of the great Ming Cho Lee training, because the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. In other words, he was successful.
Yes.
And I thought, what am I going to do? And I said, I have to go, I have to now become a couturier. Since I'd probably learned how to spell it, not pronounce it. And so I worked with him. And that's another amazing character in my life who has influenced me enormously.
Right. And okay, so and then in 1978, you got hired on the Inspector General.
My first Broadway show.
Because
someone the director was supposed to be doing the costumes, Ivey Long. And again, Ming Cho Lee got Karen Schultz to replace him. Ming was supposed to do the scenery. Livio was doing the costumes. And Ming had to drop out for something for Livio. Livio Cho Lee, by the way, the great Romanian director, scenographer, costume designer, interpreter, writer. I did ultimately 3 major works with him all over the world later. But the first was Ming had to drop out. So Ming recommended Karen Schultz, one of our classmates, Yale Drama School. And then Livio got too busy directing and interpreting and working with these pesky, irascible American actors. So he needed someone to do costumes. So he said to Karen, just get somebody. And Karen said, I have my friend William. And he said, just get somebody. I bring my portfolio. I have never done anything. He doesn't look at the portfolio, starts giving me notes. And
Really?
that's how I get my first Broadway show.
Wow. Well, I had a question of like, where were you got the call? You didn't get a call. You just showed up.
Karen said, you've got to interview with, maybe he'll hire you. He said, get somebody. So I never interviewed, didn't look at a damn thing. Just started telling me about the characters. Bob Chinsky and, Bob Chinsky.
What was the feeling when you realized
with Theodore Bickel? Oh my goodness. Theodore Bickel, the great, artist and activist was, oh my goodness. Max Wright, wonderful actors in it. And I just thought, good Lord. And my producer of then Ted Mann, of course, and Paul Libben. And I remember going to Paul Libben, my first Broadway producer, and crying because we had no more budget and I needed boots for Theodore Bickel, and tears down my cheeks. And I remember, of course, Paul Libben was and is the great Paul Libben. And I call him Uncle Paul ever since, and people think I'm being cheeky. And I'm not being cheeky. It's out of love. Oh. He's Uncle Paul. And that was a great first. Oh, and there was a newspaper strike, so there were no reviews, except there was one review of the Inspector General from the Christian Science Monitor. Of course, didn't mention me. I didn't get a review until years later. And then it was serviceable. The serviceable costume. Anyway.
Wow. That's ridiculous.
It sounds like a wild ride, doesn't it?
It is.
And it was. And it made no sense.
And that was just getting to Broadway. And then you're on Broadway.
On Broadway.
And after Inspector General, what did it take off?
Still working for Charles James, because I've got to mention, I would start working for him at 10 at night. That's when he wanted to do things.
All right.
So that left you all day and a full Broadway course of time to do whatever that is. And then I'd go back to the Chelsea and work with Mr. James.
Wow. So he just gave you show after show for a while? Or
No, you mean Leave You Truly.
Oh, yeah.
No, I didn't. I then did an opera, a Wojciech in the Welsh National Opera. And what was another? Oh, and we did a famous Hamlet, infamous Hamlet at the Public Theater with Kevin Kline as Hamlet. Finally, Kevin Kline got to be Hamlet. And because, there was a father-son relationship sort of with Joe Papp and Kevin Kline. I mean, that's famous. And it was something to see. And Joe Papp was something to experience, too. And he directed another thing that I did. Oh, my goodness, so many stories. But Leave You directed it. And Kevin was so horrified by the directing style. This is Romanian. This is ultimo Europeano sophisticato. Okay, so he did blocking. Leave You Truly told everyone where to go, when to breathe, when to say this, and of course Americans were just not having it. Not in the 70s. So there was a little problem there. So that was fabulous to be working on that show.
Wow.
But anyway, yes. So I did those things. When did I really get started? Well, that was the first one.
Yeah.
And then the second, what was my second Broadway show? Was it really, the 1940s Radio Hour, which is the first musical. And we had done this as our, because my class at the Yale Drama School with the blonde and the two directors I mentioned. And so we, of course, weren't going to go to the Public Theater or to Williamstown, which is the two places you'd go and for free spend your summers doing different shows. We created our own theater. So I converted a squash court in one of the buildings. And so I designed the theater with all the fire exit codes. So, the codes, then and now, gosh, that's why so much is so ugly. Codes design so much of your architecture and your interior, and then OSHA and your rules and this. So, but back then we were following all those things. So it was this god-awful looking theater that I designed with exit lights everywhere as part of the set. It's crazy. It's almost like Times Square, like a Guys and Dolls with exit signs. And so I did the sets for the whole for the next 3 years. I did all the scenery and costumes. And Rudnick showed up to be my costume assistant.
Wow.
Already.
So
And the first show we did that first year was called the 1940s Radio Hour.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother had inadvertently started. He had followed me up to Yale too. So I guess it's our second year we did this. And he had a sound project. My brother, Robert Long. Robert Long he builds theaters, by the way, all around the country and the world. And he had a sound design assignment from his technical theater area. And he asked Walt Jones to direct a little, 5-minute sound thing. And Walt asked Merrill, and the two of them made railroad noises and slamming doors and, coconuts on tables with the horses. It was crazy. I don't know where this recording is, but Robert got an A, and Walt Jones decided to write this musical, which is now done all over the country. It's done by every high school and college in the world. So we did the first, and we did it every year for the next 3 years. And then someone saw it from the arena stage, said, "Oh, let's do this. These kids can do this." And so the kids did it, and then someone saw it. We came to Broadway, and that was my first musical.
Thanks for listening all the way to the end of part 1 with William Ivey Long. You can get me online, theater_podcast on Instagram and Twitter. Leave a rating, leave a review everywhere that you're listening right now. It helps. This is produced by Jillian Hockman, edited by Matthew Hendershot. Thank you to Jukebox the Ghost for all of the intro and outro music you're hearing underneath us right now. In a few days, we'll release part 2, so stay tuned.
Take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful.